Yeah, it was a highly entertaining game. What about the atmosphere? The conditions were great. Like, it looked hot. It looked like the conditions caught. I thought it would have favoured the Bulldogs. It looked like it seemed to be a deterrent for them. Or it looked like they really struggled with the physicality and the power game
speed
of Manly.
Yeah, yep. For a team who, was touted as the fittest in the NRL, I thought the speed of Manly's play actually troubled the Bulldogs a bit. I actually thought, and we'll dive deeper into this game a little bit later, but I thought the worst thing possible that could have happened in that game for the Bulldogs was the fashion in which they scored their first try.
Yeah.
They scored that first try and went, yep, we're 5 on the trot. This one's going to come easy for us as well. And the thing that let them down on the night was their defence, which has been their strong point all year. And Cam Serraldo had some really strong points on that as well.
It's a good point on that, scoring early. And look, you never want to go into a game and not score early on purpose. And there have been games, normally for me, in games where I've scored really quickly or the team has scored really easily against an opponent that we were expected to beat, you can subconsciously, you get a little bit complacent. It's happened to me a number of times. We've gone 2 quick ones. The prime example of a team this year is the Warriors.
Yep.
The Warriors have done it a number of times where they look to have started really well, got a little bit comfortable, game's got in an arm wrestle and haven't been able to pull it back. And that's what it felt like, especially after Reid Marnie is hitting the badge before, or he's ripping the badge, I think, before he'd scored.
Well, Manly did it last week against the Tigers.
Yeah, you're right.
They scored 3 of the best, and watching it, I'm going 50 plus tonight. And you saw the same thing. You get complacent. Of course, there was extenuating circumstances in that Manly game with a few 10 in the bins, but I think the Bulldogs will have learnt some really important lessons during that game.
I don't know. I want to sort of give them credit because someone said this straight after the game. It must have been one of the Fox or Nine journalists after the Manly loss to the Tigers, and they said that it was sort of the loss that they needed to have.
Yep.
A little bit of a reality check for them if they were going to do anything in the finals. When I was watching that back, when I watched that game, I was like, nah. There was some circumstances in that game where I was like, they just weren't good enough. They were getting blown through the middle, and I didn't expect the result. Or at least the start that they had against the Bulldogs.
Yep.
But it looks like a great call now. And
it does.
And now I'm sort of looking at it the same way for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where you're travelling, you prefer to probably have it now 3 weeks out from, or 2 weeks out from the last round or finals, rather than getting that reality check in finals, potentially against the same team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if last week was the week the loss they needed to have, this week was the win they needed to have, but it came at the biggest price and the exact circumstances they didn't need. Losing Tom Trbojevic. We'll find out a little bit more about his injury, and we'll chat to Daly Cherry Evans about that as well. And Jason Saab went down. They're looking at 4 weeks for Jason Saab. Probably not as big a loss as Tom Trbojevic, seeing that they've got Tommy Talau and Kohler to fill that backline position as well. The Mowers Cup last night, Scope Seagulls versus my Bulldogs. As I said, the Bulldogs didn't lose a game the whole time I was overseas, so I've booked my tickets. I'm getting out of here till the grand final. The Seagulls 34 defeat the Bulldogs 22. Scope that ends a 5-game winning streak and the unbeaten home record for the Bulldogs this season. We've got to get some crowd numbers, Brooksy. We're talking 35 to 40,000, which is an amazing crowd for a 6 p.m. on a Friday. Very tough to get to. We've actually got some inside knowledge on how the Bulldogs got so many fans out to the game last night. We'll talk about that just out of the 9:45 break. All right, Seagulls, Scope, let's start on the positive. Cherry Evans and Luke Brooks steered the ship. The only sour point for the Seagulls. Now I'm going to say this is as well as I've seen the Seagulls play all season. I thought they were awesome, but soured by injuries to Tom Trbojevic and Jason Saab.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's very bittersweet for a lot of Manly fans out there this morning. Really impressive performance. I guess the most impressive part for me was normally when Manly have performances like this and they sort of blow teams away. I know the Bulldogs scored a couple late, which looked a little bit better on the scoreboard, but I thought 34-10 at one point was a pretty decent representation of where Manly were at in the game. And then obviously when Tommy went off, it's a dejecting feeling. I know I've been out there, during my time, we had Brett Stewart who got injured a number of times at the back end of sort of my time at Manly, and it was tough, mate. We had really good replacements in Peter Hickey at times, and I think maybe Clint Gutherson might have played a little bit when he was early on in his career, but it really is tough because, to win a competition, you basically need the majority of your big dogs in the team, and Tom's obviously key for this Manly team and how far they can go. Hopefully he's okay. Reported that it is an AC joint so far. I'd imagine he'd be going for scans this morning, and we'll have more information by the time, I guess, Monday morning rolls around. We're going to have a chat to the skipper a little bit later on, so maybe we can just ask Daly just how he was feeling post-game.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the beauty of this game is really good performances across the board. Normally when Manly play in this sort of fashion, it's either Tommy or it's Daly having a day out. And sometimes, in the odd game, it's Homoli Olakau'atu, who was unbelievable last night in a really big matchup against Viliami Kikau. So really pleased with this performance for Manly, but, also a little bit dejected, with the Tommy news.
Let's have a listen to what Anthony Seibold had to say about the Tom Trbojevic injury.
Yeah, so it's AC joint. So he'll definitely miss next week, from what I understand. But he'll get an X-ray or a scan. He will be right for round one of the finals. It is something that you can take the pain away. So, look, I don't think he'll be right for next week, but, that'll be sort of, I suppose, verified through the X-ray or the MRI, and we'll put a plan together for him. But, we'll make sure we look after him, and all going well, he'll be right to go again.
Big call. He'll be right. This is the same injury that Cleary's struggling with, right? The AC joint. Maybe Cleary's a bit worse.
Yeah, no, Cleary had a sublux. He had a really slight dislocation. So it is a little bit different. The AC, if it is indeed an AC, it's in normal circumstances, it's fine. Just with Tommy's injury history and
can they win it without Trbojevic?
No.
Can they win that first week of the finals without Trbojevic?
Probably not. Yeah. I don't think so, if I'm being real. And hopefully Daly's not listening to this on the way into his netball game. But, it's like any team.
Yeah.
You take Nathan out of Penrith, and I know they beat the Rabbitohs last night, but in a big finals game, I'm probably leaning towards not going Penrith in a big finals game because of that. Same as if Stephen Crichton's missing for the Bulldogs. Same as if Cameron Munster's missing for the Storm. They still can win. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a whole heap harder.
It was a rough night for Tommy because he copped that hit to the knee. I think it might have been Kikau's head.
Yeah, Kikau and then Olakau'atu come over with a little bit as well, just in case Kicks had missed. It's but the thing is with Tommy too, and I've been really hesitant to sort of declare Manly because of this. I still think, for as good as he's been going, and I've been giving him 3 points for doing the RLPA voting system. I give the point system. He's still been Manly's best over the last 3 weeks, but I reckon he's still playing at 80%. There's still a little bit of hesitation in him at the moment. So, but some of the positives, mate. Lehigh Hopewadi, wow, he is going to be an absolute player for us in the future. What position he plays moving forward. He's doing a really good job at it. He looks just so mature beyond his years.
What is it? So for someone that hasn't played at that level, what is it between, say, I watch a Saab and a Lehigh Hopewadi, and you see the size difference. There's probably a 20-kilo weight difference as well. In contact, Lehigh Hopewadi looks far superior. He looks stronger. He looks more elusive. What is it about a winger like that and their yardage carries that makes them harder to handle? And is he stronger than a Saab, or is it just a willingness for contact?
So the thing that goes away from Saab, which doesn't favour Saab, is his height. I reckon in any position now, there are clear outliers. When you've got Olakau'atu or Kikau, it doesn't matter how tall you are because you're so big, you can't get a target on you anyway. But I think for the most part, when you look at body shapes, in the outside backs like Brian Tyre, how good they are at yardage carries, and even a guy like Spencer Leniu, who might not be a traditional prop of the Jared Hargraves of the world, but just so hard to handle, got that lower centre of gravity. And then there's some guys just like Lehigh Hopewadi who doesn't have either, doesn't have height, isn't a thick build, and they've just got that strength inside them. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's through reps, maybe it's, intrinsically, it's just in them. Some players, it's just hard to explain. I remember when Jake Trbojevic first started training with us at Manly, I was just blown away with his strength. Because when you look at Jakey, and I know he's got the runs on the board now, but especially early on, you don't associate him with being a huge forward or powerful. But when you got hit or you got into his bear hug, you just couldn't get out, mate. And it's I couldn't explain it. He was at this time. I know he's got better at it. He's benching 80 kilos, lift hardly any weights in the gym or lift heavy weights. He just had it. Some guys just got it, and you can see it in Hopewadi because he's nowhere near developed. But he makes difficult things look really easy.
So for Manly, we'll stay on Manly now. They host the Sharks next week at home. That's already sold out. They can't jump, so they'll hover around that 6th or 7th. So they'll play either the Cowboys or the Bulldogs. It's basically up to the Cowboys or Bulldogs who finishes 5th and 6th and who plays the Sea Eagles.
Okay. So I'm looking at it now, 33.
Should they rest players?
Well, no, they can still jump either, can't they?
They can jump one to get into 6th, so they'd get the home semi.
Yeah, so that's important. Playing at 4 points for Manly this year has been
no resting next week.
No resting. No, you want to try to get that 6th position and get a home semi-final, because the difference between playing at 4 points compared to North Queensland, that's a huge difference.
So those bottom 4 of the top 8 have to start runs, right? So Manly started last night. So they've essentially now, to win a grand final, got to win, another 5 on the trot.
Pretty much.
Is that right?
And then also, I guess, playing a Sharks team who has been performing really well without Nico. And I'm really intrigued to watch how they go this weekend as well with Nico back in the team. Well, he's in the reserves. I don't think it's been clarified whether he's 100% playing at the moment. But to get a win against a top 4 team like that would only be good for your confidence going into the finals as well.
All right, let's quickly touch on the Bulldogs. We're going to chat a little bit more about them after the break. 34 points scored against them. It's the most points scored against them all season. 24 in the first half, which is very uncharacteristic. This is what Cam Serraldo had to say about the Bulldogs' defence.
Like, what we want to focus on is getting our systems and our processes better than what they were tonight. And I've got to say, it's the first time this year where I've walked off really disappointed in our defence. Like, we've been really consistent. Our effort and our attitude has been really high. We missed the mark a little bit tonight, and there's a couple of reasons possibly for that, but they're a good group. They'll get in there, they'll have the weekend off, get in, work hard Monday, and get it fixed.
All right. What do you think the reasons were? What were they missing last night, and why?
Just one of those games. It sort of panned out that way. Like I said, I thought the conditions were going to favour Bulldogs at the back end of the halves. They caught Manly on a bad week. Manly were embarrassed. Specifically, Manly middles were embarrassed last week with that performance against the Tigers. Even before Tigers went on a run, I thought there were some worrying signs. The start from Matt Lodge and Taniela Paseka was huge. Yeah, and not only in stature, just the way they carried the ball. And it's a frustrating thing sometimes for a Manly fan watching Taniela Paseka and Ola Kawatu in particular. They're the two alphas. They should be the two alphas in the team. And when they have the mindset to carry the ball like in the fashion that they did last night, they'll go toe to toe with a lot of teams in the competition. And unfortunately for the Bulldogs, it was just the Bulldogs were on the other end of that, and they were probably the best version of a team that you'd want to play when they're in a mood like this, because they do have a smaller pack and the conditions were tough, and it really fatigued the Bulldogs. And what the Bulldogs normally do well is weather the storm to begin with, and then at the back of the halves, then they hit the acceleration button, start getting the line speed, and that's how they blow teams off the park at the back end of the halves. Yeah. They weren't able to do that. Yeah, they were too fatigued. And Manly, you've got to give credit to Manly's starting front row.